Gyomei Himejima is the strongest demon slayer since Yoriichi. However, he was also the most damaged of them all. He was living proof that just being strong means nothing if you don't know why it is that you're strong. And so this is the full story of Demon Slayer's most broken Hashira. With him being left alone and blind, he became a priest at a temple where he went on to raise 9 orphan children like himself. With the area being notorious for its demon attacks, as a last line of defense, Gyomei would light wisteria incense each night to protect the kids he treated as his own family. However, one of them broke the rules and left the temple in the evening. The child was immediately attacked, thus with desperation consuming him, he selfishly bargained with the demon, offering Gyomei and the other children as sacrificial pawns to secure his own survival. After snuffing the wisteria incense out, the youngster invited the demon into the temple as night fell. It quickly killed 4 kids, whilst the others ignored Gyomei's instructions to stay with him and instead 2 ran from the temple. Gyomei's small stature combined with his blindness meant that the children didn't trust he was capable of protecting them, which ultimately led to their death at the hands of the demon. Amidst this heart-wrenching chaos, only a single child, the youngest and most fearful, Sayo, stuck with Gyomei. No matter what, he knew he had to fight to protect her, and so Gyomei found the strength needed to fight back. The feeling of punching a living thing to death was something he hated and would never be able to forget. Yet, in spite of that, it was here Gyomei realised he had a frightful amount of power, thus he unleashed a torrential onslaught upon the demon until dawn. Had he not decided in the heat of the moment to protect the little girl, Gyomei would have never discovered the strength that would one day cement his position as the strongest Hashira. However, what he didn't realise is that in some sense this is also where Gyomei died. During the battle, he sustained a scar across his forehead that resembles the crown of thorns. It symbolises that a painful burden of guilt and suffering has been placed upon you. This is because, due to a misunderstanding caused by Sayo, she pinned the entire blame on Gyomei, labelling him the monster, or so he believed. He felt betrayed hearing what the child he tried so hard to protect had to say about him. However, due to his blindness, he didn't know that Sayo was really going on about the demon all along, and not him. But as its body disintegrated, leaving no trace of it behind, the villagers believed she meant Gyomei. This made him not only physically blind, but emotionally too. He thought he was fighting for a thank you, whereas he'd actually forgotten that he was fighting to protect those that he loved. After he was betrayed because the kids believed that he wasn't strong enough to protect them, he became somebody he wasn't. He thought that chasing after strength would fix everything. And so he escaped death by execution in favour of growing strong as a demon slayer thanks to the aid of Kaguya Ubuyashiki. In only 2 months, Gyomei had climbed the ranks and officially became the Stone Hashira. This made him the joint fastest to have ever reached the title along with Muichiro. Whilst he's a physically strong person on the outside, on the inside his emotions are in turmoil. Hence how he will cry at the smallest things and struggle to understand others, making him so bad at communicating. This is why he always walks around with prayer beads and chants a nenbutsu. The term nenbutsu means mindfulness of Buddha. It's an expression of sentiment and a way of opening one's heart. Which brings us to the first time Gyomei met Nezuko and Tanjiro. Feeling an overwhelming sense of pity for them, Gyomei claims that it's a shame Nezuko had to be born at all and that Tanjiro should be killed to release him of his suffering. Even after Ubuyashiki gives his approval to them, Gyomei is still reluctant to accept them. Following Tanjiro's success in the Swordsmith village, however, and how he helped Muichiro and Mitsuri awaken their Hashira mark, he swore that he, along with the others, would do the same so that they could finally defeat Muzan, who wanted Nezuko's ability to survive the sun for himself. Thus, Gyomei proposed to begin the Hashira training arc, where he had one of, if not the most grueling stages of all. Many who took part would just as quickly quit, it was that bad. Tanjiro and Zenitsu were utterly astonished seeing Inosuke firmly immersed beneath a waterfall, whilst Gyomei carried a gigantic log and 2 boulders on his back as he squatted across the burning floor. He explained to Tanjiro and Zenitsu that the most important part of the body is the core, legs and hips. By strengthening those, you will acquire more accurate attacks and an even stronger defense. Thus, to pass his final stage of Hashira training, one must carry 3 thick, heavy logs, stand under a freezing cold waterfall, and push a boulder 356 feet. Gyomei instructed everyone to chant a Nenbutsu to heighten their concentration. However, the real reason for this chant was to learn the ability of repetitive motion and move the boulder, something Genya had been taught, who has a much closer relationship with Gyomei than you might realize. The Stone Hashira is actually almost like a father figure to Genya. Gyomei taught this to him because the youngster couldn't use total concentration breathing, thus trained under him so that he could learn repetitive motion and help his allies. The method in which Genya and Gyomei utilize this is to draw on the emotions of painful memories. Their stories are two sides of the same coin. Whereas Gyomei believed he was blamed for murdering his family, Genya blamed his brother for murdering their mother. Genya knew that he was weak, however he still wanted to apologize to and protect his brother. Hence why Gyomei took him under his wing, as he likely saw a reflection of himself within. By combining repetitive motion with total concentration breathing, it can rival upper rank demons. Thus it becomes obvious why Inosuke labelled Gyomei as the strongest Hashira of them all, to which Tanjiro agreed, stating that he had a scent unlike anybody else. Following his completion of the Stone Hashira's training, Gyomei admitted he was deeply impressed by Tanjiro's selfishness and unwavering dedication to protect the residents of the Swordsmith village over his own sister, and confidently declared him to be a true swordsman. However, Tanjiro humbly declined Gyomei's approval, saying that the decision was Nezuko's rather than his own, and because of his own inability to choose, the villagers almost died. Witnessing his honesty, the Stone Hashira's respect for Tanjiro shot up. Suddenly, Gyomei began to see things clearly again. He thought back to the day the children at the temple selfishly protected themselves in his eyes, but thought that perhaps Tanjiro was different. He could have easily taken the praise for himself and lied, but he didn't. He truly did want the truth to be known and for his sister to take the credit. Thus, from that moment forward, the Stone Hashira respected Tanjiro regardless of what others thought. Following this, Muzan's attack on Ubuyashiki commences as the head of the Demon Slayer Corps sacrifices himself as bait against Muzan to give the Hashira a chance to kill the Demon Lord. Gyomei beheaded him, yet it was not enough. The only way to kill Muzan was sunlight, which posed a little bit of an issue. They were fighting at the height of nighttime. Nonetheless, the Hashira knew they would have to stall for time, thus simultaneously attacked, but to no avail. Suddenly, the area surrounding them changed and the floor opened up, throwing them all into the Infinity Castle. Initially paired with Muichiro, Gyomei and him make their way through it before, in the blink of an eye, the Mist Hashira is forcefully transported to none other than upper rank 1 Kokushibo. Genya was also lurking nearby, but they were swiftly outclassed by the demon, who cut off an arm each effortlessly. Saname soon appears to protect his brother and does a good job standing his ground. Nonetheless, he soon finds himself losing his advantage, which is when Gyomei emerges to battle alongside him. Meanwhile, Kokushibo uses the transparent world to take a peek into his body composition, declaring Gyomei to be complete perfection and the greatest swordsman he had seen for over 300 years. Both fighters were the second strongest of their kind and believed strength to be everything. Kokushibo was only second to Muzan and abandoned his humanity in search for power, whilst Gyomei was second only to Yoriichi, but tunnel visioned on strength as a coping mechanism for his own perceived failure to protect those he loved. Their battle rages on as the demon realizes that Gyomei's weapon has absorbed so much sunlight that his flesh katana would burn away before he'd even be able to cut through it. He's so astounded by the sheer power of it that he says, "Iron that has absorbed that much sunlight hadn't even been discovered in the Sengoku period when swordsmanship was at its peak." Gyomei then destroys Kokushibo's sword, but due to it being made of his flesh, it quickly regenerates. Realizing the formidable strength of his opponent, Gyomei then activates the power-up he planned to save for Muzan, his Demon Slayer mark. This was a great physical metaphor for Gyomei's character. The fists that he trained into becoming murderous weapons now began to show cracks. It represented how Gyomei's physical strength was nothing more than a stone shell that was beginning to crack the more that he understood his feelings. However, rather than feeling fear, Kokushibo felt a sense of sorrow, knowing that those who awaken their Demon Slayer marker die before the age of 25. This is because whilst granting its user a huge boost in power, it also comes at a price, vastly reducing one's lifespan. This made Kokushibo think Gyomei was throwing his life away considering he was already 27, thus meaning that he would die that night. However, Gyomei had long accepted death when he joined the Demon Slayers. After all, there's no point clinging to life if there's demons anyway. Since remember, it was demons that robbed him of his true purpose in life of loving and protecting children. Besides, Gyomei firmly reminds the Upper Moon that there was a marked Demon Slayer that survived past the age of 25, Kokushibo's brother, Yoriichi. This infuriates the demon and so he lashes out at Gyomei. Meanwhile, Saname finishes tending to his injuries and rejoins the battle with his own mark. Amidst all the chaos, Gyomei gains access to the transparent world for just a moment, but it was enough time to form a clear image and sense his pulse. The other Hashira also achieved this feat, and suddenly the tide of battle slightly shifts in favour of the Demon Slayers once again, with the help of Genya, who had eaten a chunk of Kokushibo's flesh. Because of this, he had gained his very own demon blood art, allowing him to subdue the Upper Moon One with an array of thick tree trunks protruding from the bullets he had fired. Knowing that Saname and Gyomei will do anything to fight to the death, Muichiro attempts a sacrificial play of his own, turning his blade red and stabbing Kokushibo. Not only does this freeze him in place through the pain of his insides burning, but it also restricts him from using his blood demon art. Taking advantage of the opening that the young Mist Hashira had given them, Saname and Gyomei combine together with their own red weapons and behead Kokushibo. The thought of losing makes his blood boil as he forcefully stops his own bleeding and begins to regenerate his head, taking on a completely new, mutated form. Gyomei instructs Saname to continue the pressure, which is when, in the reflection of the Wind Hashira's blade, Kokushibo lays eyes upon himself. Repulsed by his distorted appearance, the image of his younger brother Yoriichi appears in his mind as a flood of memories overwhelm him, causing Kokushibo to question if this is truly what he wanted. This causes the demon's resolve to falter ever so slightly, giving the Hashira an easy opening to strike the final blow. The upper rank one believed the next generation would never surpass him, and Gyomei believed those younger than him to be immature and selfish. And yet, both were proved wrong. It was Kokushibo's own ancestor and Genya, the two youngest on the battlefield, that sacrificed themselves to become the key in victory. Meanwhile, the Demon Slayers had forced Muzan up to the outside world, with Tanjiro believed to be dead. It's here that Gyomei's appearance causes Muzan to pause ever so slightly, knowing that he killed Kokushibo, giving Saname time to slice him down the middle. It of course doesn't kill him, and so Muzan's relentless outburst continues, with both his speed and power continuing to increase to the point where all the Hashira together begin to lose their advantage. Gyomei then slams his axe and flail together, turning it red in order to considerably slow down Muzan's regeneration, with just 1 hour and 3 minutes left until sunrise. Zenitsu, Inosuke and Kanao then join the battle, giving Gyomei just enough time to regain his concentration and access the transparent world once more. What he sees are multiple hearts and brains scattered throughout Muzan's body, and how he has the ability to regenerate identical replacements, hence why simply beheading him is not enough. And as if that wasn't already bad news, these vital organs continually move around within his body to avoid being attacked. However, in the blink of an eye, Muzan one-shots every single Demon Slayer present. Nevertheless, that would not stop Gyomei. As the sun begins to rise, Muzan covered himself in an armor of flesh as protection so that he could escape, yet it was the Stone Hashira who stopped him in his tracks despite being on death's door. The Hashiras all collectively reach their limit as Gyomei's chain snaps, but they had done enough. With sunrise upon them, Muzan had been exposed to it. Knowing that their long war was finally over, Gyomei relaxed his body, refusing medical attention, knowing that his time was up. Thus, he escaped the fate that Kokushibo had given him. Contrary to what the Upper Moon had thought, Gyomei did not die that night, and instead lived to see the morning, something his orphan children didn't have the luxury of. In his dying moments, Gyomei meets them all in the afterlife, where they explain what had really happened that night, apologizing. They were worried for his own safety due to his blindness. All would have been explained had they just lived to see the morning once more. Succumbing to tears, the Stone Hashira apologized for his perceived failure to protect them as he closed his eyes to be with his family once more in the afterlife. Learning the truth of the day that haunted Gyomei gave him the sense of closure he needed. Ironically, it was the strongest he'd ever been, being able to accept his feelings and forgive the children for his own misunderstanding. It was only following this moment that he truly did save someone, as his spirit played a vital role in helping push Tanjiro to victory, defeating Muzan once and for all. 200 years later though, Gyomei returned, this time reincarnated in the body of a kindergarten teacher to live the life he was robbed of once already, helping the kids who needed him most free of danger. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you check out the one on your screen right now, telling the dramatic story of Shinobu's tragic and heroic death versus Doma.